Shepherdsville, Kentucky is a small town in Bullitt County, just south of Louisville. Known for its bourbon heritage, scenic countryside and access to the Salt River, it's a quiet but growing community with a mix of small-town charm and modern conveniences. The town was home to Michael and Edna Dishon. Together, the couple welcomed a daughter on May 2nd, 1982, who they named Jessica Dawn Dishon. The couple also later had two sons, Michael and Christopher. As the oldest of three siblings, Jessica naturally took on a protective and nurturing role towards Christopher and Michael. She was known for her kind and loving nature, always striving to bring happiness to her family. Whether it was cooking meals or showing affection to her parents and brothers, Jessica's warmth and care were a constant presence in their lives. On the morning of Friday, September 10th, 1999, Edna and Mike Dishon left for work as usual, while their sons, Christopher and Michael, boarded the school bus to Bernheim Middle School. 17-year-old Jessica gathered her things and headed towards her newly purchased red Pontiac Sunfire, which she had proudly bought with earnings from her job at Hardee's. Later that day, around 1:30 p.m, Edna was the first to return home and immediately noticed Jessica's car still parked in the driveway. A closer look inside revealed unsettling clues. Jessica's backpack, work clothes, purse, a single shoe on the driver's side floor, and her phone resting on the seat. The most alarming discovery was that Jessica's phone had dialed 911, heightening Edna's concern. Overcome with fear, she began searching frantically for her daughter. When Mike arrived home from work, he and Edna immediately contacted the school to find out if Jessica had attended classes that day. When the school confirmed she hadn't shown up, the worried parents reached out to the Bullitt County Police Department that evening. Mike's call was answered by Deputy David Greenwell, who sought help from Detective Charles Mann twice regarding the situation. However, Mann declined both times, convinced that Jessica had simply run away. Frustrated with the police's lack of action, Mike turned to the FBI for help. They organised a search party and began looking for Jessica. Unfortunately, Jessica's car was left unsecured, permitting friends, family, and even journalists to approach Jessica's vehicle, potentially compromising evidence. Despite this critical mistake, investigators pressed forward, focusing their efforts on questioning those closest to the Dishon family in search of valuable leads. On September 27th, 1999, roughly 7 miles from the Dishon home, bus driver Karen Hobbs made a grim discovery near Greenwell Ford Road in the river bottoms. Around 60 to 90 feet from the roadway, she spotted the lifeless body of a young woman lying in the grass. The woman had suffered horrific injuries. Her jaw was broken and her fingers had been severed. Autopsy results indicated that the body belonged to Jessica Dishon and had likely been held captive and tortured for a day or two before her death, which was determined to be caused by strangulation. Authorities also found that her body had been relocated about 15 feet to a spot where it could easily be seen from the road, possibly as much as 18 hours before it was discovered. Detective Lynn Hunt suggested that someone wanted Jessica to be found, marking the first indication that her murder was likely personal. When authorities called Edna Dishon to identify the body, she confirmed that it was her 17-year-old daughter, Jessica. The Dishons' next-door neighbours, the Brooks brothers, David Bucky Brooks and Joseph Tommy Brooks, had been behaving strangely prior to Jessica's body having been found. They made harassing phone calls, mockingly saying, quote, "Please don't kill me, please don't kill me." They also stalked relatives of the Dishons. When questioned about his whereabouts on the day Jessica disappeared, one of the brothers, Bucky Brooks, admitted to seeing her that morning. With little evidence to go on and Bucky's presence at the scene raising suspicion, authorities took him into custody. When questioned, Bucky Brooks initially stated that he had been working on his family's farm and saw Jessica getting into her car that morning. However, he later contradicted himself, claiming that he hadn't seen her at all. To assess his credibility, authorities administered a polygraph test, which he failed miserably. With no solid alibi, inconsistent statements, and a failed lie detector test, Bucky was ultimately charged with Jessica's kidnapping and murder. Despite Bucky Brooks's arrest, the case against him remained weak, further complicated by his low IQ of 61, which authorities had taken into account. When his trial began in January 2003, prosecutors struggled to build a strong argument. The situation worsened when the court ruled that Bucky's failed polygraph test was inadmissible as evidence, ultimately leading to a mistrial on January 29th. James Coulter, who was rumoured to be involved in a drug dealing with Jessica, initially became a suspect in her case. However, once his alibi was confirmed, investigators shifted their attention elsewhere. Despite this, some still speculate that Coulter or another drug dealer might have been connected to her death. Following the mistrial of Bucky Brooks, Jessica's case went cold for over a decade until a breakthrough emerged in 2013. An inmate from Kentucky State Penitentiary in Oldham County came forward with shocking information. He claimed that Jessica's uncle, Stanley Dishon, had confessed to killing her. According to the inmate, Stanley admitted to the murder, allegedly motivated by his disapproval of Jessica's relationship with someone her own age. The inmate also said that Stanley had allegedly been in a relationship with Jessica at one point. He even confessed to mutilating her body to make it appear as though a criminal gang was responsible. With this new lead, investigators shifted their attention to Stanley Dishon. The inmate at the penitentiary also stated that Stanley had hidden personal belongings of Jessica's beneath a fallen tree in the place where she was murdered. Detective Lynn Hunt and Michael Dishon searched for hours, with the group digging through what could have been as many as 175 holes in the area, all while enduring heavy rain. After 6 or 7 hours without finding anything, they abandoned their search for buried evidence. They then moved to a nearby barn, a place Michael remembered from past parties. There, in the dim light of one of the buildings, they discovered a material that resembled Jessica's bedsheet. When they returned to the Dishon home, they realised the sheet from Jessica's bed was missing. During their investigation, law enforcement uncovered a disturbing history of sexually abusive behaviour by Jessica's uncle, Stanley Dishon. It was revealed that as a teenager, he had lived with his siblings and was accused of abusing several of their children. Between 1989 and 1996, Stanley also stayed in Jessica's home, where he allegedly abused her as well. People close to Stanley reported strange behaviour after Jessica went missing, including an obsession with television and struggles with sleep. Additionally, it was discovered that in 2002, Stanley had been arrested and later convicted of sexual assault. Stanley Dishon was charged with the murder of his niece, Jessica Dishon, as well as 3 counts of sexual abuse. In 2015, he entered an Alford plea, which allows a defendant to maintain their innocence while acknowledging that the prosecution has enough evidence to likely secure a conviction. In this case, Stanley agreed to plead guilty to 4 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of manslaughter related to Jessica's death. As part of the plea agreement, Stanley was sentenced to 20 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 16 years. He is currently incarcerated at the Kentucky State Penitentiary, with his earliest eligibility for parole set for 2028. His sentence will conclude in 2033. Edna and Mike firmly believe that Stanley was responsible for their daughter's death. Both parents agree that Stanley didn't act alone, suggesting that it would have taken at least 2 people to move Jessica's body. Jessica's brother, Michael Dishon, recalled Jessica as a caring and protective older sister. She had aspirations of studying culinary arts and often prepared meals for her family. Quote, "Sometimes it was stuff you really couldn't eat," he humorously admitted. The case, plagued by police errors and community frustration, saw multiple suspects but lacked concrete evidence. After the mistrial in 2002, the case remained largely dormant until it was reignited by retired Louisville detective Lynn Hunt, whose efforts ultimately led to the 2013 arrest of Jessica's uncle, Stanley. While some members of the Dishon family continue to believe that Stanley is innocent, Michael feels the case was resolved when Stanley confessed in court. For him, that was the final word on the matter. Quote, "We won in the end," Michael said. Quote, "So it doesn't matter." Following Stanley's conviction, Michael expressed his relief, saying, quote, "I'm very happy, very optimistic about the future. Very ready to put the pain all behind and just move forward."